This is a general overview. It goes fairly fast. It covers all areas of who we are, what we do, with lots of examples. We came about in, we established 2005, following the inquiry into Ladbroke Grove rail accident in 1999. So 2 acts of legislation. We operate similar to the air branch and the marine branch. We're all under DFT. They pay us, they fund us, but the key thing is we're independent. No doubt you've seen our report, so there's 2 examples of our full investigation reports. Sometimes we do shorter ones, safety digests, which aren't as in-depth, but still carry safety messages. And now and again, we issue urgent safety advice. This is stuff we come across sort of early days of an investigation where we feel we need to get some safety learning out rather than the industry wait for us to publish a full report. So we do that as and when we see fit. We don't get involved with blame, liability, or prosecutions. Those things are for others, and we're here for safety only. In terms of what we legally have to investigate, it's basically based on seriousness, so death, injury, or extensive loss, and there's measures for those. We do investigate near misses, so these are roll of the dice incidents where it's just luck that it didn't turn out worse. And all of our investigations we do where we know we can learn safety lessons. So what do we cover? We cover UK mainline, the metro systems, the tramways, and the heritage railway sector. We have 2 bases, one's in Derby, the other's in Farnborough. We have lots of equipment. We have examination rooms, vehicles, based at both places, and we have on-call staff as well at both centres. Organisationally, we're fairly flat, so we have a chief, a deputy, and then 4 principal inspectors who are effectively team leaders, and they head up the other 20 inspectors. So there's 2 principal inspectors in Farnborough and 2 in Derby. And then we have a number of support staff such as IT, publications, facilities management. In terms of who we are and where we've come from, most of us are ex-railway industry, covering all the rail disciplines. We do have some folk that are from the ORR or HSE. We have a number who are ex-police, either BTP or National Force, and we have some specialists. Example there is human factors, and we have some people from academic backgrounds. We've yet to find an inspector, new inspector who knows it all. I don't think anybody can know it all. So we have an extensive training programme for about the first 18 months to expose new inspectors to all aspects of the railway, how it operates, different rail sectors. And some of that, as you'd guess, includes investigation techniques, evidence handling, talking to witnesses, and family liaison. If you've ever been unfortunate enough to be on an accident site, they're busy places. Lots of interesting people and lots of interested parties as well. In terms of the evidence on a railway site, RAIB have primacy of it. And that's unless the police can put a case together that they can show clear evidence of criminality, the evidence on a site is under our management. And there's some parties that will be present on the site. They all have their respective jobs and duties to do. We have a duty to handle evidence correctly and to share evidence. So physical evidence, photographs, we will share, and other parties will share with us through memorandum of understandings that we have with them. And that's because the other parties there may wish to use that evidence for their purposes once we've done with it. What we won't share, what we can't share, and this is covered by law, is statements of witnesses. So if we interview people, which we do, we're not allowed to share those statements with the other bodies. We can request statements from those bodies, but we're not allowed to disclose ours. and we found that really useful because people can talk to us. There's no right of silence with us, but then again, there's no legal anything hanging over people's heads with us. They're the questions you'd expect any investigator to ask. Our key aim is to identify the cause of the accident, which we call causal factors. You see those in our reports. And we also look at the consequence. What was the outcome? And those together give us the safety lessons which form the recommendations which then go into the reports. Why things sometimes hit the fan. This is the model that we tend to use. You may have come across it. It's known as the Swiss cheese model, developed by James Reason. And each of those slices of cheese is effectively a barrier from an event turning into an accident at the bottom right. Now and again, you get the holes in those cheese slices to line up. The titles of those cheese slices change, and you can tag them however you like. Some of those you'll notice are actually active failures. So unsafe acts and inactions are active failures. So somebody did this, the bit of equipment didn't perform as expected. And some of them, which are a lot more subtle, are latent failures. So they're sort of background, culture, organisational factors, still play a part in the accident happening, and we do look at those as well. In terms of the outcome, it's usually worse than grated cheese. In terms of underlying factors, which you will see in our report, I've just touched on that. They're management organisational arrangements behind the causal factors. And sometimes in reports we will put observations. These are things that we've uncovered during a course of an investigation. They're not directly related to the cause, but they do have safety learning. Everything we do has to be underpinned by evidence. So most evidence fits in a bag. Some evidence is too big for a bag. There's another large piece of evidence, and that gives it some context. And now and again, we will take large pieces of infrastructure and trains away. One, it's expedient to do so, so the site can be released. Secondly, we can gain a lot more information by looking at whatever it is under more controlled circumstances. There's probably the smallest piece of evidence we've ever seized. That's about 2.5 millimetres. That was a foreign object found in a microswitch, part of a train door interlocking system. The train door opened in service at 79 miles an hour. Luckily, nobody was injured. It's not immediate to even the best inspector that that is the cause of the door opening. To get to that, you have to start at the top and trace the whole system down. So a lot of the work we do is discounting other evidence. So you have to start at system level and work your way down. And that's true. We all know that railway interfaces are complex. So when we do an investigation, we have to spread the net wide to begin with and actually put a lot of effort into discounting factors that could have made that accident happen. On site, we do photography, video, and measurement. Occasionally, we do testing on site. This is principally where, if you disturb evidence, we'll lose what that evidence is telling us. So perishable, vulnerable evidence. Top left there is we're putting void meters down on a vehicle after a track buckle. The vehicle, well, one of the wagons was still there, so we thought let's put void meters down before they move it. Wheel measurements as well we will do on site, and signalling equipment is especially delicate to, if you disturb something, you can change the state of it, plus all the interlocking downstream. That's a common question we are asked. You possibly will be under pressure from others who are asking that question of you. That's a better question. We have legal duties, as I've said, to handle evidence correctly. So the answer to that is to work together. It's not easy recovering evidence. Getting from A to B to C takes days. We would, and we did, rather have those two vehicles removed as intact as possible, rather than recovery crews going in with gas torches. That was low adhesion. We're obviously interested in how that vehicle and the others performed in braking. The answer is planning, and we do a lot of planning on site. We will talk and liaise with other parties. We will consider what their wishes are, what their needs are, and plans on site can change very, very quickly, a few times a day possibly, depending how things are going. There's a quite simple example. So this was a track buckle of wagons. We will zone off areas and search those areas early on. We may, as we did in this case, fly our drones to record evidence. And doing it that way allows early release of those vehicles, those wagons, off the track, and also allows track engineers to get in and restore the track while we're still working at the point of derailment. So a lot of parallel activities can speed things up. There's data sources on site, so on-train data recorders, your black, orange boxes, and signalling equipment has data loggers on, which we will retrieve. Off-site, there's far more, so lots of inspection records, CCTV, signalling records, and occasionally, and we have the powers to do so, we can download people's mobile phones, which in certain circumstances has proved useful. Documents and records, they are numerous. We will ask for those as soon as we're notified, but the majority of them happen downstream when we're in the midst of the investigation. So asset management records, written records, safe system of work records, etc. CCTV is a good source of data. That's that track buckle again. That is the state that we would leave site. So we've got the vehicles off, we've done our measurements, we would hand it back. Following on from that, this particular one, we talked to the train operator who had run a passenger train over there about an hour and a half before the freight train. And you can see there we've got evidence of the track buckle forming. Two more examples. The one on the left is Tyne and Wear Metro, where we had OLE break. And the one on the right, you can see at the bottom there, that is a train driver who, on West Coast Main Line, and a few seconds after that image, makes contact with the OLE, which had broken but had re-energised. And he was very, very lucky to survive. Witnesses, people are witnesses. Witnesses are people. So those present at the scene, that train driver, I met him first in his hospital bed. Very interesting gentleman. And we have to handle some people with care, obviously. Although they've eyewitness accounts, they may have been affected by the event. And then downstream, others who can shed light on the background to information that we're after, and such people are sitting in this audience. And then we have to, if people are willing, handle the injured and those bereaved. So we've all had family liaison training. If people want to stay with us and follow what we're doing all the way through an investigation, we will do so. And now and again, it's becoming more frequent actually, we will appear in inquests and coroners' courts to give evidence. So what do we do with all this evidence? First thing we tend to do is do a timeline. So we will synchronise various sources of data. So that could include witness accounts with CCTV, data from recorders. And that bottom example is an overspeed we had a few years ago. So we will synchronise CCTV from the train, data recorders from the signalling system, and what basically place the train where the signals were. This is our process once we start to identify factors. We call it causal analysis. So on there, we're effectively a event. It's not an event tree, it's a causal tree where we link factors, and they are causal factors and underlying factors supported by evidence, and those basically form what our recommendations will be. Things we do sort of technically, metallurgy, so examples there of fatigue in chair screws and also in a pandrel shoulder, and rail breakages. More and more we do modelling, so photogrammetry, you've probably heard of it, where we fly our drones, take lots and lots of photos. From that we can produce 3D models, very useful for visualisation. You can put contours on them. That one at bottom left was following a landslide in Scotland. And it's good coupled with ground-based surveying, and just that flying a drone over and using the software, you can get accuracy below 1 centimetre. Old school technique. This is an image from some stuff we did following the grey rig accident. So that stock and switch rail model, they're the bolts that came out of the stretcher bars that were displaced. We were able with that to actually match how the damage was most likely occurred, and from that we could work out what the freewheel clearances were between switch and stock rail as the set of points degraded. Vampire modelling, this is particularly focused on the TRK 053 standard. So we will measure the rails on site, we will measure the vehicle wheels either on site or off site, and then run a virtual train over virtual track to recreate the conditions that it derailed at. Some reconstruction. The one on the left there that was a fatal injury to a shunter. This is showing actually where that person must have been to get those injuries. And on the right, we've got the points that we lifted out, you saw earlier, from grey rig. We took all the parts off that were damaged, replaced them with new parts, played lots of tunes in terms of recreating freewheel clearances to find out the likely sequence of how things fell apart and also the likely forces that those components saw. Simple test. This was following a trap and drag on a platform. I'm sure we've all put our hand in the inner lift door before, and the person who was injured, they said, "Oh yeah, I thought the doors would open." Well, that's a bit of a human thing, isn't it? And we've all done it. This one was focused on basically how you can overcome a safety system if you put your hand in at a certain angle. So we followed through on that in terms of approval and acceptance of that as a safety system. Sometimes it seems obvious, doesn't need an inspector to tell you that train's not where it should be. And then you find a 1/4 ton rubber block in the forefoot, and you find a hole in a road carriageway, and you think, yeah, piece of cake. However, there's still plenty to do. Looking at that rubber block with that big score and the damage to the lifeguard on the train, that helped us to actually place where that block was, where that panel was at the time the train arrived. There was a level crossing CCTV. That person in the foreground at that time was on the phone to the local police. You can see the train arriving there, so a key eyewitness to the derailment. A few minutes earlier, that person had crashed their car by hitting the rubber block, and you can see that car's up on 2 wheels. Luckily, they weren't injured. We then ran the CCTV back, and we worked out that this tanker lorry full of unpleasant chicken slurry, I spent a happy afternoon crawling under it, seeing if there's anything that could have lifted the panel out of track. We traced that, and we also looked at the other damage underneath the panel and where it was in the road and how it was designed to be fixed down, and we worked out it must have been bounced out. That led to deeper investigation into product acceptance of that panel system, installation, maintenance, repair. Consequence I mentioned. Now and again in the accidents that we really don't like, we have to look at how passengers got injured or even worse. So we will sort of take the vehicles away and do analysis on those. This was a consequence. This is the first of two overspeed incidents, which you may have seen the report on. This was a train that did 76 miles an hour over a 25 mile an hour crossover. It was very, very close to overturning. We did some dynamic model on it, and there wasn't a lot of margin. However, there was a consequence in terms of the passengers on board. So many of them got injured through heavy luggage being stored overhead. And we made recommendations on this to do with luggage storage to that particular train operator. That's a simple equation to us. And no doubt you've all seen this before. And we've been very close. We've been more than close sometimes. But just remember, your best asset are your people. And that particular accident where we have near misses with track workers, you can see there we've changed the titles of those slices of cheese. They're more softer, they're more human, but there's a role to play in terms of audit, compliance, monitoring to stop those things happening. So to wrap up, what's on the horizon? Low adhesion. Alice mentioned about weather and leaves, and we have published the interim report on that, which is on our website should you wish to read it. This is the one I'm knee-deep in at the moment. This is Audenshaw freight train derailment last September. Can't say too much about it, but hopefully you've seen the urgent safety advice we issued out in October last year. The topic is obviously longitudinal bearer systems. We've done a lot of modelling, we've done some metallurgy, we've got the X-rays in, and we've invested in a hammer and chisel high-tech to find what's happened there. That should be published back end of the summer, all being well. It's nice to meet. It's nice to be clapped onto something. Usually people clap me and clap us when we leave site because they're glad to see the back of us. But thank you all very much.